Welcome back to Mark My Words Football Podcast
with Rob
and Scott. And we are back with you this week to recap what was a great Week 15 and to look forward to what is surely to be another great Week 16. Some massive matchups in the NFL this week in terms of playoff seeding and some exciting football as the regular season begins to wind down and the playoffs begin to shape up. Some very exciting games between the two teams that we talk about most. So why don't we head right into there, where the Buffalo Bills defeated the Detroit Lions this week by a score of 48-42. And Rob, what were your thoughts on this game?
So watching this game was absolute joy, as was the last Bills game we saw against the Rams. Very couple entertaining weeks from the Bills, especially with their offense just being absolutely unabated. Like 2 weeks in a row, defense has not had an answer for Josh Allen and the offense. And that has been an incredible development. I think, as we have said before, I think this has been Josh Allen's best season. Although it hasn't necessarily at times been reflected in his stats, that's certainly changed over the last few weeks with the games against the Niners, the Rams, and the Lions. He's shown that, yeah, he still is that guy that can just absolutely go ballistic in these games, like 300-plus yards, 4 touchdowns, 6 touchdowns the week before. And yet he has that, which he always had in him before. But now he has another element in his game, which he can be a game manager now, which is, I think, a key element. And so, I'm not concerned about Josh Allen at all. I'm not concerned about this offense in any way, in any shape. But I am a little bit concerned. I come away with this game thinking about 2 things, or 3 things really. And that's Tyler Bass, who missed another field goal this game from under 30 yards. The defense, who have now given up 40-plus points in 2 straight weeks. And thirdly, Sean McDermott, although he didn't really have a terrible moments in this game, more with the Rams game, which I know I wasn't here able to discuss that. He gets a little bit antsy when the game comes to crunch time. So I think while I've been very impressed with the offense, I think as a whole, last couple of weeks, I may have come down a little bit on the Bills.
Yeah, there's several points that I'm with you here on. I think national media has been absolutely singing the praises of the Bills this week, more maybe than I think you and I probably would, because maybe in part because I think we knew what this offense could be, and there'd been signs of it all year long. That I thought this was going to be at least a pretty good offense, and it has even been great these last couple weeks. But I'd brought up several times about the defense, mainly the running game, that they were not able to defend that, and that the defense could be a problem. And going into January, the Bills certainly could win a Super Bowl. I think they're one of the heavyweight teams in this league. But if they do fall in the playoffs, the defense, for me, is probably going to be the number one culprit of why. I don't think it's going to be Josh Allen or anything with this offense. I think the defense is going to let them down. It could be very well get shredded and be the reason that you lose a close game to a team like Kansas City yet again.
Yeah, I would have to agree here. And in years past, I really, Josh Allen in the playoffs, his stats look really incredible. But typically he plays. I don't think he's ever had a game where he's played just awful, where you thought, man, Josh Allen lost us the game. But he's definitely had games where it's like, man, he really felt like he could have done more. I don't think he's the issue at all going into these playoffs. I really do think, like you said, the defense. And I was kind of fooled. I think you were never completely sold on the defense. And I was like, you know what? Sometimes it's not about the guys you have, but it's about the way that you come together and the way you play as a unit. But it looks like, okay, maybe it is about the guys you have, because I think the Bills this year, they've shown that they can play really well against bad offenses. But when it comes to the more premier offenses, their defense hasn't been great. I mean, you would look at the last couple weeks, but even before that, I mean, they gave up, pretty big numbers against the Dolphins, even though they were able to win that game. But, the Jets, they kind of let them hang in there, the Jets being one of the worst offenses. And then the Ravens, they got beat up on early in the year. And also the Cardinals wasn't a great game on defense. Whereas, they looked great against the Titans and, the Jaguars and teams like that. So maybe, I think you have had the correct take on this defense where you weren't trusting them all the way. And I think I was a little bit fooled on them.
But I mean, Sean McDermott is a defensive coach, so if anybody's gonna be able to kind of turn them around and hope that first-year defensive coordinator Bobby Babich can put something together, I think it is him. He's been able to prove he can get some solid play from his players, but we'll see if he can make good decisions. Because yeah, I mean, again, like you mentioned, he is part of the reason that has lost them some marquee games. Like there are definitely quite a few that can come right to mind when you say that.
Yes, and I think they can get by. Like, it's the defense. They always say wins championships, and I think defense is very important still, even in this era. But you can win a Super Bowl with a mediocre defense. Certainly, I don't think you can. It's very difficult to win a Super Bowl with a mediocre offense. And so, as long as they're able to be clutch, right? And because this offense is so dynamic, it can win even if Josh Allen, say, doesn't have the best game. I think they have the run game now to be able to especially when Josh Allen, you take his legs into consideration. They have the run game to be able to pound the rock. And if the run game is stymied, I mean, we certainly have seen that Josh Allen can still throw for, 400 yards. So as long as the defense is able to be clutch, I think that's really all they need with how good this offense is.
Yeah, 100% agree with you on the point about the mediocre offense or mediocre defense. Yeah, 100% agree with you on that. And
yes,
as for Detroit, this is the first time this year I've got any doubt of them. Like for me, for almost the entirety of this season, they've been no doubt in my mind number one team in this league. And the only reason why I'd be doubting them now is the amount of injuries that they have piled up.
Yeah, absolutely. There's many a full screen of all the players with their names crossed out. It's incredible. They're playing so many backup players on that defense. But it seems like this is when I saw this game and I watched it develop and seeing the final result, I just thought back to Dan Campbell's press conference from last year when they lost in the championship, where he's like, this could be the last time we ever get to this point. It seemed like a strange thing to say at the time, considering like this is a team on the rise. Like if anything, you feel like you're going to get better. But like he was kind of right. It's really hard to get back to that point because everything has to go right. And the last year, the Lions were one of the healthiest teams. This year, they're so beat up. I worry about their durability. And now you're looking at the possibility of not getting the 1 seed, not even winning your division. You could end up the 5 seed, which would be disastrous.
Yeah, and like certainly going through a much harder gauntlet in the NFC by that path.
Yes, and I don't know, like you said, I'm starting to have a little bit of doubt because I really didn't have any doubt in the Lions. I thought they were clearly like a top 2 team in the league. The only reason why I put the Chiefs ahead is because of the history. But if it was just taking this year in consideration, the Lions would definitely be the best team until this game. But if they're not able to get the 1 seed and they have to now play 2-3 games on the road, I don't know if they're going to be able to do it with that defense.
Yeah, I would agree with you there.
And from there, I think we're going to go on here to my team, the Green Bay Packers, who prevailed with a very nice victory on Sunday Night Football against the Seahawks by a score of 30-13. And what were your initial thoughts from this game?
I think this was just a really well done all-around game from the Packers. They were able to get up early, and the offense went a little stagnant for a while. They didn't score points for quite some time, but when it looked like the Seahawks might be starting to mount a comeback, they were able to just throw the dagger. An absolutely gorgeous pass from Jordan Love to Romeo Doubs in the back of the end zone. Like, just a beautiful, beautiful play. I've just been impressed with how this team has done overall, like running the ball extremely effectively. The defensive line was all over the place, getting 7 sacks this week. 5 of them came without blitzing, which is very impressive. It's like all around, like I've just been on the up and up about this team, and I continue to be that way.
Yes, and this game, the standout player for me was Romeo Doubs. On his 2 touchdowns were just some of the best touchdowns I've seen, especially that first one where he catches it. He is immediately met with 2 defenders and just bulldozes them. Not something you typically see from him. He's not really that type of player, but that ferocity I thought that was a fun play. And then obviously that last touchdown was absolute dime by Love. And this game was just a very complete game, probably one of the most complete games I've seen from them. But the one concern, like you said, they had that kind of third quarter slump, that point in the game where they just weren't scoring a lot. And so for me, that's been the main concern, is that Jordan Love, but also the team in general, they haven't really been able to put together 60 minutes of just awesome football. And, they looked great in this game. And I think they looked as good as they have all season. But the one thing I would say is just try and don't let the gas up. Don't let the pedal up, because when you play better teams, they're going to take advantage of that. The Seahawks weren't able to, but if you're playing the Vikings or the Eagles or the Lions, I think the moment you kind of let up a little bit, that's when they're going to put the pedal down.
Yeah.
I don't Seahawks, man, they just were killing themselves this game with 100 yards and penalties.
Yeah, and your guy there, Sam Howell, he is just a walking just negative play machine.
Watch it.
Every single play, he can't go more than 2 snaps without either throwing interception, getting sacked, just something crazy happening.
Well, Sam Howell, they were going to lose this game even if Geno played the whole game the way it was looking. Sam Howell, hey, throwing in there Sunday Night Football, a tough spot. I'm not going to judge him too much based on that. But, Seahawks, I never really thought they were legitimate playoff contenders. I never had them really in the contender category, certainly. And fringe, I would say definitely lower end. So this doesn't really surprise me that they put together this kind of poor performance. They've consistently been a very penalized team, and that definitely continued. 5 penalties with 108 yards off of them, also with 2 interceptions in the game. So just really, stabbing themselves in the foot here, and the Packers definitely able to take advantage of that.
Yeah. For me, the Packers, I just have so much confidence in this team. I don't see any reason why they couldn't be in the NFC Championship or even representing the NFC in the Super Bowl at this point. That's just how confident I am in this team that they could 100% go in and defeat the Eagles or the Vikings or the Lions. I just think they're very good, a very complete team. They've got all the pieces. They've got all the weapons, the quarterback, the running game. The defense can make splash plays, and they've got a very good coach in LaFleur.
Really? Wow. I mean, that's surprising, because you were a little bit down on the defense, especially early in the year.
Yeah, I'm a little bit more down on the defense as a whole, but it can make enough splash plays and not kill them too much to be able to be at the level I think they need to be.
Wow, that's actually, I'm surprised you say that. I think I would have them. I would be surprised if they get to the championship or especially the Super Bowl, just because they're going to have to play 3 road games. That's just very hard to do. Now, we saw the Packers do it. They were the last team to do it with Rodgers, 14 years ago now. But I just think that's really hard to do. You'd probably be looking at, facing the Rams or the Bucs in the first round, and then you'd probably have to go to Philly or Detroit in the second round. I just think that's going to be really hard. But, hey, I like your confidence in them. And from there, we're going to go on to the Clown of the Week for NFL Week 15.
Everybody loves a good clown, and now it's time to meet the NFL's Clown of the Week for this week. And this week, the Clown of the Week in the NFL is Tennessee Titans quarterback Will Levis. After looking like he could maybe be a starting NFL quarterback, gaining some confidence back in him, that all came crashing to a halt this week, as Will Levis has certainly become clown-worthy once again this season, as within a range of 5 pass attempts, he threw 3 interceptions. 3 interceptions and 5 pass attempts. That is just absolutely absurd. And not only that, he had another fumble he lost in the game before ultimately getting yanked. This guy has just been making crazy decisions, clown-worthy decisions all year long. We thought that he'd been able to rein it in after his benching and he'd come back. We thought he'd been able to get better, but that is absolutely not the case. I guess if you wore clown shoes once, they're always stuck on your feet. So this week, Will Levis, you are the Clown of the Week.
All right, and from there, we're going to go into our game picks for NFL Week 16. And Scott taking a big lead last week, getting 14 games correct. Very, very good. He's starting to pull away here. 7 games ahead, 146 on the year. And me with 139, only with 3 weeks to go. Got my hands full here. Let's get it kicked off with the Thursday night game matchup between the Broncos and the Chargers. And right now, the Broncos ahead of the Chargers in the seeding. Do you think the Chargers are able to overtake them with the win?
I do, as I have the Chargers winning this game.
And I will also have the Chargers here.
Yeah, a battle of the number 1 and number 2 scoring defenses here. So we very well could be in for a low-scoring game, or maybe they'll surprise us, and we could have some fun offense. What do you think?
Yeah, well, you never know with Bo Nix. Bo Nix has been kind of a wild card this year. The Chargers definitely like to condense you and pull you into their low-scoring type of atmosphere, so I think that's probably what's going to happen. But you never know. Herbert could definitely go off for 300 yards, definitely capable of that, and so is Bo Nix. I think it's definitely going to be a fun one. Wouldn't be surprised if the Broncos stole it, though. I think it'll be probably a field goal game.
Well, yeah, 100% agree. Last week was the first game the Chargers defense really wasn't able to control a game like they wanted to. They really letting Tampa Bay walk all over them. And we had talked about like going into the fantasy playoffs and that, like if I had Evans or Mayfield, I would not have played them. And I did sit Evans in one of my leagues, fortunately, because I did not trust Tampa Bay or really anybody going up against that Chargers defense because they've been so stingy this year.
Yeah, that was a complete shock to me as well. Just the way that they let that game kind of get out of hand. But I think overall they're a strong team. I think that was an outlier rather than a predictor of things to come. I do think they should rein it back a little bit, especially against a team like the Broncos, who are not as capable as the Buccaneers with Baker and Evans.
Yes.
And then we go on to a game between the Texans and the Chiefs. This one should be interesting. Who do you think takes it?
I'll have the Chiefs winning this one.
And I'll also take the Chiefs.
So we're back to the Chiefs this week after picking the Browns last week.
Yeah, that was... So the reasoning behind that was, since I wasn't here to explain that, was I thought, like, the Chiefs, just going 16-1 is just so astronomically, just almost impossible, I thought. And I thought, maybe the Chiefs just slip out a dumb loss. And I thought the Browns, Myles Garrett getting pressure on the Chiefs, you never know what could happen. And all of it takes maybe is a sack fumble or something like that. And Jameis Winston might be slinging it. Didn't happen, obviously. But Chiefs here, I think Mahomes is probably going to play this game. If he doesn't, that could certainly change what I think. But with Mahomes playing on a hobbled ankle, I think he tends to play better when he's hurt for some reason. I'm definitely riding with the Chiefs.
Yeah. The Texans are a team, like, I think we can pretty solidly say what they are right now. They're a good team. Like, they'll be there in the playoffs. I'd say they probably have a decent chance to get upset in the wild card round. I mean, they're fine. They deserve to be in the playoffs, but highly doubt they can win a game, or certainly not more than one.
Yeah, they're probably going to... I think they probably will get upset. I don't even know if it'll be an upset, because they're probably going to be facing either the Steelers or the Ravens. And I would take either of those teams to beat the Texans in the first round.
Yeah, I think I would too. And the spread will probably reflect that.
Yeah. And speaking of the Steelers and the Ravens, the next game we have is between the Steelers and the Ravens here, divisional game in Baltimore. Do you think the Ravens get their revenge from earlier in the year?
Yes, I do. I have the Ravens winning this one.
And I'm going to take the Steelers here.
Yeah, so I think unsurprising on either of our parts here.
Yep, just like a few weeks ago, Steelers got the better of them in that one. Maybe I wouldn't be too surprised if the Ravens come back with the win here. Steelers kind of their worst game of the year last week against the Eagles, losing by 14 points in that one. The first game where you could say, oh, that was a bad game by them, because other losses were very close. But I do believe in the Steelers, as I've said before, so I got to stick with my guns on this one.
All right.
Yeah, but I don't know.
It sounds like we're both much less confident in these teams than the picks that we made a few weeks ago.
Yes. A couple weeks ago, we would be, strutting around like a peacock, with our feathers up. And now it's just like we're obligated to, I haven't come off them totally, but.
No, I wouldn't. I'd say that you shouldn't either, but.
Yeah.
This was
the magic is starting to wear off, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, but they if they come out here and they pound the Ravens, that would definitely it'd be like, oh, okay, we're back.
Yeah.
And the Ravens, by the way, this is a must win for the Ravens. Like, if they have want any shot to say, okay, we're a team to be taken seriously in the playoffs that can make the Super Bowl, you have to win this game. You just have to. Like, if you don't, you're going to be wild card 9-6. Like, you need to win this game. This is a very important game for the Ravens.
Yeah, and it'd be nice for you to finally have a good offensive game versus the Steelers. The Steelers should always seem to bottle you up for some reason and win these weird low-scoring games. There's usually a lot of field goals. It's usually because you fumbled or had a dumb interception or something, and the offense just wasn't good enough the rest of the game to make up for that.
Exactly. Yes, Ravens have to have it. And then we go on to another AFC North game with the Browns taking on the Bengals. And who do you think comes out on top?
Not the Bengals winning this one.
I'm going to take the Bengals here as well.
I cannot believe last week that the Bengals defense still allowed 27 points while getting 6 turnovers. How do you get 6 turnovers, 6 drives that you end with the ball and still allow 27 points? That's absurd to me that they can do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's historically bad defense, it feels like. And that's just absolutely pathetic. Anyone can tread this defense. The Browns are going to be starting DTR, I believe. So I think that's a mistake. I still think Jameis Winston is the better QB. When you start Jameis, it's you gotta ride it out. I feel like you're gonna get up weeks and down weeks. So this is gonna be a high scoring game, as Bengals games always are. But I don't think DTR is even close to capable of keeping up with Joe Burrow, who I expect to shred the Browns.
Yeah, I would agree.
And from there, we're going to go on to a game between the New York Giants and the Atlanta Falcons, who will be starting Michael Penix in his NFL debut. Do you think he starts off his career with a win?
Yes, I do.
And I do as well. I'll take the Falcons.
And Drew Lock will be back in for the Giants in this one. So, yes, a quarterback matchup we were all looking forward to, Drew Lock versus Michael Penix. Although, not to be sarcastic, but I think several people have been wanting to see Penix. I don't know that I was particularly one of them, although Kirk Cousins has definitely been down the last month.
Yeah, his Achilles, it looked like, it was definitely he had restricted mobility, but I didn't think he would be too impacted by it. I thought of the two QBs, Rodgers and Cousins, coming off their Achilles, that Rodgers would be more impacted because his style is a little bit more, freewheeling and scrambling, whereas Cousins is definitely just, pocket passer. But Cousins, I think, has been the worst QB. And certainly in the last few weeks, Rodgers has been trending up. Cousins has been trending down, so down that they bench him. Penix is going to start. I don't really think he gives you, a better chance to win necessarily because he's just an unknown. But I think at this point, it's just like, hey, might as well start him. We know Cousins is not the guy to take us in, into the playoffs and make a push for it. So might as well see what we got.
Let's see if you spark something. You barely sneak out one versus the Raiders last week to get you back to 500. And now you face a poorly Giants team who looks very likely that they will finish the season without a win at their home stadium, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, that is incredible. Just sad times over there.
Yes.
And speaking of sad times, we have the lowly Chicago Bears sitting at 4-10, losing 8 in a row. I'm so sad. So sad for the Bears. And they're going to take on the Lions, who are 12-2, coming off a loss against the Bills. Who do you think gets the win here?
The Lions winning this game.
And I'll take Detroit as well.
Yeah, I'm not that sad for the Bears. They've lost a lot of close games. Or maybe just for the people that wanted to pick them and tell me that they were going to be good. And because there could be multiple things that are true at the same time. This is what I talked about preseason, where I said, okay, look, I can agree. Ryan Poles did a good job of bringing in talent and addressing some needs on this team. But that team was so bad, you could not fix it all in one off season. It is not possible. I could still look at that roster and say, look, there are holes on this team. This is not going to be a playoff team. I said as much. Look, I'm right here. I was right. I had the right call. Everyone likes to be up on the Bears every year. This is 3 years in a row now? They're never right. The Bears are going to make the playoffs. They're going to be good. Every year I have to hear this, and I think every year I've been on the side of saying no, they're not.
Yeah, some people are even flirting with Bears to the Super Bowl, which is just wild to me. But yeah, I mean the Bears. I fell for it at the beginning of the year. They were 4-2. I was like, oh man, the Bears are gonna. I thought they were gonna finish ahead of the Packers, especially when Love got hurt. Obviously, it didn't happen, and I'm grateful for that. Yeah, I think Caleb, I'm not like out on Caleb Williams. I don't think he's been the problem. I mean, he hasn't thrown an interception in their 8-game losing streak, and not to say that he's been playing great, but a lot of those games are really close games that were lost by just absolute, almost comedic error. Especially, towards like the last few plays, a lot of them were decided in the last few plays. So I don't think 4-10 completely reflects how good they are. I don't think they're like a bottom feeders team, but I think they're far from what people had thought they were going to be, for sure.
Yeah.
And the Lions, yeah, they need a win. It's time for Jared Goff to step up and see if he can carry this team on his back, especially with Montgomery being out. Just the injuries are insane. But this Lions team is very tenacious, and Dan Campbell, he's going to have him fired up. Maybe this is I think the best thing we could see is another like 50-6 game here, which could certainly be possible.
Yeah, I would agree.
And from there, we have an AFC South matchup between the Titans and the Colts. And who do you think will win this one?
Oh, the Colts winning this one.
And I will also have the Colts here.
Yeah, Colts have just been pretty mediocre team this year. Their defense did a pretty good job holding the Broncos, only 200 yards last week, but still somehow allowed 30 points. That's a little bit of a head scratcher. They did allow the one defensive touchdown, but still, like scoring 30 points, only allowing 200 yards is kind of nuts.
Yeah, especially this was that was a have to have a game. Broncos is a team you were chasing to get in the wild card, and like the best you got is like having Mitchell like throw a weird like receiver pass, like when Benito is clearly coming, and like him reads it all the way, and you still throw it. And then after the game, I don't know if you saw, like Mitchell's like defending the pass. He's like, "No, it was the right decision. Like this is the right call. I threw the ball. That was the play. I made the right decision." Like, no, you didn't. Like it was obvious. This is obvious what you were doing. It was a pick six. Just take the L, man. But yeah, Colts, unfortunate how their season ends with that loss, but much better team than the Titans, who are complete bottom feeders.
Yeah, they've been awful this year.
Yeah, and I think Levis is probably going to be not as good. He's going to be the backup for this one, so maybe they get a little bit better performance, but even so, I'll still take the Colts.
Yeah, Rudolph will give you his boring, like whatever he is, like 12 of 20 for 174 yards.
Yeah, I think this should still start Levis, though. It gives you something to, there's going to be a moment in that game if Levis is playing where it's just you're going to be thoroughly entertained, whether it's good or bad.
Yeah, and like even on the Richardson part, I thought the Rich should have really turned the corner after his benching, but last week again another game under 50% completion percentage for Richardson, and that's certainly been an issue and just continues to be for him.
Yeah, definitely. And from there, we're going on to a matchup between the Rams and the Jets. Rams, fresh off a win against the Niners, 12-6. Quite different from the week before against the Bills. And the Jets, off a win against the Jaguars. Who do you think gets the win this time?
Well, the Rams winning this one.
And I'm also going to take the Rams here.
Yeah. The offense was definitely not impressive against the 49ers, but they were able to get the job done by winning path of 4 field goals and just stymie the 49ers defense. Yeah, just a complete opposite of the game against the Bills.
Yes. And I was definitely rubbing my hands in anticipation to come on here and say I told you so. And I'm not generally someone that likes to gloat. Actually, no, scratch it. I love to gloat. And I'm here to say that I did tell you so. The Rams are absolutely contenders to midweights. That's what I said a couple weeks before. I'm thinking they're heavyweights though.
No, they're not.
They could easily, like, this is a team that if you want to get in high scoring shootout, 40 points plus, we can do that. We can beat one of the best teams in the league. If you want to get in a low scoring, grudge match, we can do that too. We can beat the Niners in a 12-6 game when their season's on the line. So Rams, I've never felt better about them. I predicted they were going to win the division. They were sitting at 1-4. I was marking my words. I've stuck with them the whole year, been absolutely consistent. And yeah, they have definitely vindicated my beliefs.
I still don't think they're that good.
Get on the train. No reason to think that they won't keep vindicating my beliefs. But the Jets on the other side of this game, showing a little bit of life. Nothing to write home about, but Rodgers been playing a lot better. Davante Adams last game, though, wow. 9 catches, almost 200 yards and 2 TDs. Yeah, definitely some excitement there. So maybe this game won't be a complete blowout here.
Yeah, let's see. I think the Rodgers and Adams certainly giving some interesting thoughts for the new management group, whoever will be coming in this year.
Right. 'Cause what do you do now, man? That's a
you'd
tough
have to
situation.
imagine that they'd have to start over and get rid of those two. But
Well, that's what everyone was thinking, and that's what I was thinking as well. But let's say that they keep playing like they did last week, and they let's say if they're able to sneak out a win this week or against the Bills, and then win in the last week against Miami and finish 6-11, and they continue to play well. What do you do then? Because you have Rodgers and you're going to take a big cap hit if you get rid of him. Do you try and salvage this and maybe go for it again? Or do you just still say, you know what, this is over?
yeah, it'd be very interesting. And if they were to run it back, if they missed it next year, there would be a whole new type of just depression in New York.
Yeah. Well, I see that's almost the thing. I feel like it almost can't get any worse than, because people out there, they have no expectations now. I feel like, the expectations are just out the window. We've seen this team be an absolutely awful team. So I don't know if you really would have anything to lose by just going for it, because you've already kind of sold your future, in that trade for Rodgers and paying him this much money. You've definitely sold away the immediate future. So I don't know how much you have to lose, but on the other hand, this roster is still pretty talented and still fairly young. So maybe even if, you don't have a ton of money and a lot of cap space, maybe you are able to build something. It's tough. It's going to be very interesting. I think how they finish the season is going to really dictate what they do next year.
Yeah.
And from there, we go over to the NFC East in a matchup between the Eagles and the Commanders. And who do you think takes this one?
Oh, the Eagles winning this one.
I'll also have the Eagles here. Man, how different are views of these teams since the last time they met?
Yeah, we were both very gung-ho on the Commanders to take this game. And I would say I still view the Commanders as a good team now. They're a solid enough team, but I don't know if they'll get a playoff win. But Eagles, on the other hand, last week, they really changed my mind about how I feel about them. Really being able to hand it to the Steelers, team that had never been dominated all year, and just an absolutely brutal killing 21 play, 10-minute drive to end the game.
Yeah,
that's insane.
Yeah, Eagles are it's just uncontested heavyweights in my opinion.
And they barely used Barkley that game either.
Yes, that's the thing.
That was a big thing for, I think, both of us, that we thought that if Barkley was not going at full force, were they going to be able to keep up? And I think that they proved last week that they could.
Yes, and with A.J. Brown and his comments in the media, very dramatic week leading up to that game for the Eagles. But I think he was justified. He was calling out, we have not been good passing. We haven't been good enough passing the ball. We have been fine, but if we're going to win, if we're going to go all the way, we have to be able to be more than just the team with Saquon Barkley. And they impressed me a lot last week against a good Steelers defense. I think, Barkley is the horse, the heartbeat of this team, but you have to be able to show that you can air it out as well. And so the Eagles, I've just been thoroughly impressed with them.
Yes, I would agree.
And from there, we have a matchup between the Cardinals fighting for their season, taking on the Panthers. And who do you have winning this one?
Oh, the Cardinals winning this one?
And I'll also take the Cardinals.
Yeah, poor Carolina. Last week they were favored for the first time in nearly 2 full years, and it did not work out well for them.
Is that true? First time in nearly 2 years?
Yes, almost 2 full years was since the last time they were favored, and they got absolutely demolished that game too.
Yeah, I wasn't fooled by that line. But we think we both took the Cowboys last week. But yeah, Panthers, they definitely been playing better as of late until that game. But not surprised to see that. Cardinals, they were looking pretty good. They were, leading that division, have fallen off a little bit since that point. But desperation, I think, will kick in here. I think the Cardinals are a fun team, and I think they will definitely win this one for sure.
All right.
And from there we have what should be a very interesting matchup between the Vikings and the Seahawks. Seahawks fresh off a shellacking by the Packers. Do you think the Vikings are able to similarly shellac the Seahawks?
I'm not sure they'll be able to shellac them, but I do have the Vikings getting out a win.
And I'll take the Vikings here. I do think it will be another blowout here in Seattle.
Okay, very interesting. I think Geno Smith playing could be a part in that. His status still up in the air at this point. But, yeah, an interesting matchup in terms of playoff seeding. Like, Seattle could certainly see that their hopes fall right off with a loss, and potentially now the Rams win, or they continue to hold on hopes for when they will face the Rams coming up soon.
Yes, and the main reason I think the Vikings will prevail by a hefty margin is because they see that they've been right there with Detroit all season, but now there's a clear opening here, and they're both 12-2. The Lions are very beat up. I think the Vikings are going to be even more renewed and have even more energy.
All right.
I think they could easily end up in the 1 seed, which is crazy. So they got to stay focused. I think they're very well coached. And Darnold's been playing great. I mean, I think we were all kind of a bit hesitant to be like, is Darnold, we were kind of waiting for him to fall off the cliff, but he never has. And I mean, he's been playing absolutely exceptional. He's only had, I think, 2 games this season with a pass rating below 100, which is exceptional. He's been very consistently good. So I think it's time to put our trust in Darnold here.
Yeah, there's definitely been some magic with that team. I think O'Connell 100% deserves Coach of the Year. Like, for me, if I had the availability to bet it, I would have bet that the Vikings for having the worst record in the league this year.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah,
especially with those injuries, like injuries preseason, it just felt like, this is called collapsing before it even starts.
Yeah, and I didn't like the talent on that roster to begin with.
Completely agree. And then we go over to the AFC East between a game with the Patriots taking on the Bills. And who do you have winning this one?
The Bills winning this one.
I'll also take the Bills here.
For me, just as a Bills fan, that just had to live my entire childhood getting tormented by Tom Brady and just knowing every Bills-Patriots game was an assured loss. It still just brings me some kind of joy to watch the Bills just toy with the Patriots franchise every time. And they have had several blowouts in the McDermott, Josh Allen era. They all still it heals a little bit of hurt for me.
I completely, I can't empathize with the being tormented because the Packers have been great for my entire lifetime. But I could definitely say that beating up your hated rival never gets old. I mean, Packers Bears just. There's never any fear when we play the Bears. It's like, we're gonna win, and we might win by a ton of points, and it's always satisfying. So yeah, I think the Bills will win decisively here.
Yes, and I think most everybody would agree.
Absolutely. And then you go on to a game between the Jacksonville Jaguars, led by Mac Jones, taking on the Raiders, led by who is it again? I don't even know. But it's a great matchup here. Who do you think will win?
The Jaguars winning this one?
I'll take the Jaguars as well.
Yeah, I can't believe how good Mac Jones has been playing lately, but here we are.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't even go that far. Mac Jones, last week he played better than he has before, but even so, it's 2 interceptions, had made some weird throws, and the game before that, even though they won, he was not good. So I don't have very much faith in Mac Jones, but Raiders are, I think, the worst team in the league. Yeah, so yeah.
And Max Crosby done for the year now and going for surgery. Like they got nothing left. Antonio Pierce proving to be a very bad hire for that team.
Yeah. All right, and then going on here, we have a game between the 49ers and the Dolphins. Both teams sitting at 6-8, probably thinking that their season is done. Who do you think wins?
Oh, the 49ers winning this one?
I'll also take the 49ers.
Okay, interesting. This was probably the game I've wrestled with the most about what to pick.
Yeah, I trusted the Dolphins last week to beat the Texans, but then they came out and looked absolutely terrible. So I'm like, well, scratch that. And then I remembered, oh, wait, it's December. So, yeah, we're getting December too, even though it's not even cold. So, yeah, give me Brock and the 49ers here.
Yeah, and in a game that's like not a whole lot meaningful anymore for either of these teams.
I think Brock has more to play for. Tua already got paid. Brock's looking to prove that he's worth the big bucks. So there's that going for motivation.
Yeah, definitely.
And then we have a game between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Dallas Cowboys. Buccaneers all of a sudden in the driver's seat to win the division. Do you think they win against the Cowboys here?
I do.
And I also will have Buccaneers.
Yeah, it's like, what a crazy storyline for the Bucs. Like, coming from where they were, I had absolutely no faith that they would be able to come back and win this division. I thought they were completely dead in the water. They have proved me wrong exponentially. Their offense looked incredible last week versus the Chargers. They just have this inexplicable way of just being able to do that sometimes. It's not always there, but sometimes they can just put on the kind of offensive show, and you're just like, where did that come from? That was incredible.
Yes, I completely agree. And yeah, this team is just a very resilient team. When those injuries happened with Godwin and Evans, I was like, man, I was like you, man, this seems like the season's over, which is kind of a shame. But they've come back and played really strong games, especially with that blowout against the Chargers. And I think it's mostly due to Baker Mayfield, who obviously one of my favorite players. I don't think we realize how good of a season he's been having. So going right now, it looks like Josh Allen's going to win MVP. I think he absolutely deserves that. But comparing the stats, Josh Allen, 64% completion percentage. Baker, 70.8 on the season. Josh Allen, total passing yards, 3,400. Baker, 3,600. Allen, total TDs, 37. Baker, passing TDs, 32. And total 36. Josh Allen, interceptions 5, and obviously Baker has 14. But passer rating, Allen 103, Baker 104. So Baker is having a top 3 QB season right now, and I don't think many people are aware of that.
Yeah, those are some good stats you brought up there.
Very good. He's having the best season of his career, and I just think that's been what a storyline for him, going into Cleveland and everything that happened there, how he was ousted and kind of in the darkness, in Carolina, just not playing very well, and then getting a shot against, with the Rams in the last part of the season and coming to Tampa Bay and just reviving his career. Just been one of my favorite storylines, and good for him. Hopefully they're able to close out the year and win the division.
Yeah.
And to conclude the week, we have a game between the New Orleans Saints and the Green Bay Packers. Who do you think will win on Monday night?
Oh, the Packers winning this one.
And I'll also take the Packers here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty confident in this team, especially take on a Saints team. Although the Saints have won a lot of games since good old Rizzies came in here, but yeah, not a lot of confidence in that team, and they were not very quality wins anyway. So go Pack, go.
Yep, absolutely agree with that. Packers definitely are capable of blowing out these types of teams, so hopefully we get another signature win from the Packers here. Hoping to see also Jordan Love air it out a little more. He's been playing a little bit too safe in my opinion, kind of going away from the quarterback that he is. I definitely respect that he's trying to take care of the ball, but I think he's got to start to let it loose a little bit. Hopefully I want to see him throw for a good amount of yards here.
Yeah.
And from there, we're going on to our against the spread picks. Didn't have a lot of success last week as we both got ours wrong, but still on the year. Doing pretty good. Scott right near 500 with 7-8. Me at 11-4. So what do we got for this week?
So this week I've got dialed up the New York Giants at plus 7.5 versus Atlanta. Atlanta putting in Michael Penix as quite a wild card, and for me, not something I want to really trust in that offense. I do have Atlanta winning outright, but I don't think it's going to be by much. Therefore, I think Giants plus 7.5 is a pretty safe pick for this week.
All right, and for mine, I will take the Steelers here at plus 6.5. So it feels like I take the Steelers on this segment every other week, but this is just a ridiculous line. In Baltimore, against your division foe, plus 6, you're giving me almost a touchdown? I mean, that is absolutely ridiculous. I'm going to take that all day. And these games are never, like, they're always close. They're always usually low scoring, but even when they're a little bit higher scoring, and by high, I mean, like, both teams have over 20, they're always like within like a point or a field goal. So even if the Ravens win, which I don't think they will, I mean, they're going to win by like 2, 3, 4 points maybe. So yeah, give me the Steelers all the way. This is a disrespectful line.
Yeah, I would agree. It's like people completely forgot like what this matchup is and what happened just a few weeks ago.
Yes, absolutely.
And moving on from there, we will go on to Rob's fantasy starts and sits of the week. We are well into the fantasy playoffs, and we hope your team has gotten in there based on the great advice of our own Rob. And even this week, Rob and I's teams will be facing in the playoffs in two of our leagues. One is more of a consolation bracket after both losing our first round matchups, but in another, we are in the semifinals against each other. So, Rob, what have you got dialed up for the folks this week in fantasy?
All right, so my advice here, first I'm going to give you some bonus tips here. So if you have Kyler Murray and Justin Herbert as your 2 QBs, I would just sit both of them for this week and just not start any quarterbacks. Because there's kind of new strategy in fantasy. I don't know if you've heard about it.
Really? I've never heard of this one before.
Yeah, it's the taunt your opponent strategy. So what you do is you sit your QBs, and then your projection looks like 40 points lower than what it otherwise would be, and that kind of gives your opponents a false confidence. And so that would be kind of my advice first and foremost. But if you don't have Kyler Murray or Justin Herbert, I would tell you to start running back Jerome Ford for the Cleveland Browns. And this week, the Browns are facing the Bengals defense, which is possibly the worst defense in NFL history, always giving up a good point margin. Jerome Ford also is going to be the primary back as Nick Chubb was placed on IR, ending his season. There is a bit of worry because the Bengals score a lot of points as well, and maybe this game might get out of hand, especially with DTR in there. But ultimately, I think that DTR may lean on Ford in the screen game in this one, and also as an outlet on dump-off passes. So Ford's a guy that can definitely catch the ball. Had a 60-yard touchdown last week, so capable of big plays. Definitely would start Jerome Ford here. I would also start tight end Sam Laporta. So, about halfway through the year, I said you should be sitting Laporta for the foreseeable future until otherwise noted. Well, right now, I think is the time otherwise noted. Sam Laporta been doing a lot better lately. First 8 games, he was averaging 3.25 targets. Last 5 games, averaging 7 targets. Chicago's bottom 10 against tight ends. And Jared Goff has been lighting up lately. So I look for Goff to lean on Laporta. And the passing game for the Lions should be in full flex, especially because Montgomery is out for the Lions on the ground. So start Sam Laporta. And then in the sits, I'm going to tell you to sit both of the Seahawks running backs against the Minnesota Vikings. So Kenneth Walker, Charbonnet, whoever ends up playing, sit them both. The Seahawks, I've been impressed with them. I know they've had a few good wins, but Minnesota defense is very, very strong, very stout. And I think Geno Smith is going to really need to step it up, or Sam Howell, whoever ends up playing this game, is going to need to step it up. I think the Vikings are going to jump on them early, not going to be a lot of opportunities to run, so sit the Seahawks running backs. And then I'll also tell you to sit tight end Mark Andrews for the Baltimore Ravens. Last time the Ravens played the Steelers, Andrews had a whopping 3 targets, 2 catches for 20 yards. So not great there. Again, this is always a black and a blue game, a lot of runs, sloppiness, punts, turnovers. Not really liking this matchup for Mark Andrews. Lamar 1-4 against the Steelers, has 5 touchdowns in those games and 11 turnovers. So not very good, not a lot of touchdown opportunities. Would definitely sit Mark Andrews.
Good stuff.
And from there, going on to Scott's parlay of the week. Crunch time in the season, getting down to the wire here. What do you have as we start closing out the regular season?
Yeah, so last week we came up just short but we're going to be starting off with that team to get us in the winning column. So this week I've got the Chargers. Right now I've got them at minus 152 versus Denver. I think they're the better team in that matchup, so the value is good enough there for me, so I'll be taking the Chargers. After that, I'll be taking the Minnesota Vikings. I've got them as minus 162 versus Seattle. I think we talked about that we're both fairly confident in the Vikings this week, so to get them at any number in the hundreds is pretty good for me, so I'll be taking the Vikings. And finally, this week I've got the Jacksonville Jaguars. It is pretty close to a pick'em right now between them and the Raiders, so I definitely like the value there. Like looking for something to be able to add into this parlay every week to try and get the value, try and get some money there, and definitely doing it as well in a matchup that I do believe in. So this week, bet on the money line, Los Angeles Chargers, Minnesota Vikings, Jacksonville Jaguars.
All right, I like it a lot. And we thank you guys for tuning in to this edition of the podcast. Feel free to like, follow, and subscribe. Your viewership is greatly appreciated. We're getting into crunch time in the NFL. Last few weeks, really going to be interesting to see how it plays out. AFC mostly set with who is going to be in the playoffs, but seeding is key there. In the NFC, anything can happen. So we're going to sit back, we're going to all watch it together, and we'll be back next week to give you our analysis and breakdown of all that was Week 16. And this has been Mark My Words Football Podcast with Rob
And Scott.
and we are tuning out.